Today I hope to share with all of you an important insight into our spirituality. How do we communicate with God? How do we communicate with each other? How do we communicate with our inner self? Answer: in many, many languages, with prayers spoken and unspoken. But I will submit that one of the most important communication methods we have with God, with each other, and our own inner life is music. Music. We just sang. We're together. Have you experienced music that seems to come from somewhere and you really can't place why it's there in your head, but it's there, and you're humming it, and it's waking you up or putting you to sleep, whatever. You can't get it out of your head. And you wake up and there's music on the radio, on TV, maybe a song you like, maybe one you don't like. Can you even imagine a world without music? And we know it took thousands and thousands of years for our development as human beings to communicate with language. Just think how many languages there are out there in the world today, and how many have become extinct, no longer available. Singing, dancing, many cultures, many people, all created by God, who created all we see and know. 7% of our Bible is represented in the Psalms, such as we just sang together and offer each week in worship. It's the longest book in the Bible, the book of Psalms. Ours today, Psalm 25. To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. My God, I put my trust in you. We do not know who wrote this psalm. We don't know who wrote any of the psalms. These were individuals that were experiencing an inner life with God that came out in their, at that time, communication of singing. We don't know what it sounded like. We don't know what instruments they used. But this person could have written this 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years ago, communicating with God. And we're still being communicated with by that person today. And one of the reasons that I love to go to England and the Anglican Church there is to experience the evensong and those great cathedrals that are all over England. And they're just built for the kind of music, kind of space, perfect for music. So when you go, and if you go to England, go to evensong. How did you first become aware of music in your life? Question. How and when? You probably cannot remember your mother or father singing a song to you as a baby, helping you to go to sleep. But you do probably remember listening and participating in school events as you grew up. That was a part of growing up. I was raised in West Texas on country western music. I still appreciate most of it because it's often in story form. And we hear a story of whoever's writing the song, their joy and their pain and their sense of being lost or whatever it is, but it's a story of their life written in song. And I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church in Texas. Dancing was a no-no. No, no. Elvis Presley appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show while I was in high school. Remember that, some of you? He wouldn't show anything above his hips. Well remembered by some of us that are older. I had become a part of the Episcopal Church by this time. I joined with my parents. And we went to church every Sunday. And they allowed me to have a dance in our living room. We took the rug out, and I invited my friends, and off we came, listening to music with Elvis Presley and others at the time. It was quite a dance. But some of those that I invited didn't come. Their parents said, no dancing. Roy Orbison, who some of you have heard his name, was raised in a town about 50 miles away from my hometown of Pecos. And he was beginning to sing in local venues in our area. He would come and sing in Monahans, Texas, Odessa, Midland, with his little band. And I invited him to be a part of our senior prom. And he had just returned from the Sun Record Company label in Nashville, and he put together a song called, I don't think any of you would know this one, Ooby Dooby. Ooby Dooby. He sang that several times at our prom. It was a different prom for our school. Thank God. I went to work my senior year in high school, and I was working nights at our local radio station and began to play and hear music I'd never heard before. Symphonies, operas, individuals like Nat King Cole, Frank Sinatra. Radio was my entrance into music. While I was in college, I worked 3 summers full-time in Cortez, Colorado, and Fort Stockton, Texas. I worked for a family friend who owned 26 stations in Texas, New Mexico, and Colorado. It was called the Cactus State Network. I played every kind of music possible and listened to many sermons on Sunday. I was the only announcer on Sunday. I would open the station in the morning and close it at night. And in between, we'd have music and all kinds of news. And we would have people come in and give live sermons, and we had it on tape. It was a different world then. The icing on the cake for me in music was when I was a freshman at Texas Tech in Lubbock, Texas. And I tried out for the Texas Tech choir as a freshman. I was a second base, and they needed second bases. I could not read music, but I could sing. Everyone else in the choir was a music major. So I happened to be something of a freak when I was the only freshman that was allowed into the choir. That was the same year, 1958, that we were invited to sing on the Ed Sullivan Show that some of you may remember. Ed Sullivan. And off we went to New York City in April of 1958. I was only 18 years old. I tell people I sang on the Ed Sullivan Show right after Nat King Cole. And they are impressed until I tell them and admit that I sang with 28 other people. Oh, well, I'm sure you have your stories to tell about music. Leaf through your hymnal sometime while you're sitting in the pew or at home and realize just how many years some of those hymns have been with us. and who wrote them when, and how important they were at that time and how important they are to us today. People touched by the Spirit and given the gift of music to share with others. The Wesley brothers, Charles and John, were both Anglican priests, and they wrote over 2,000 hymns in their lifetime, and over 24 are in our hymnal today. So much of our music comes from the depths of our human experiences. A man by the name of Thomas Dorsey was a preacher that traveled during the 1930s. He was away from home when his wife died in childbirth, and he got home after her death. He locked himself in his room and wrote a song that is one of the best we have from black culture. Martin Luther King Jr. asked that it be played at his funeral. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me on. Thank you. Another song that is tradition from those who lived in slavery and wrote songs to keep them alive and help them to live and die. I'm just a poor wayfaring stranger. I'm traveling through this world below. There is no sickness, toil, or danger in that bright world to which I go. I'm going there to see my Father. I'm going there no more to roam. I'm just a-going over Jordan. I'm just a-going over home. And of course, the story of John Newton, who was on board a ship of slaves from Africa, when he felt the Spirit move within him to turn away from assisting bringing slaves to the Americas. He wrote the song that we all love, Amazing Grace. I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. He helped bring an end to slavery in England's assistance of slavery in the early 1800s. Our Christian story comes from many voices, including those voices that put together the Old Testament Psalms. There are various mentions of singing in Paul's writing, and at the end of the Last Supper, we're told in Matthew and Mark that Jesus and his disciples sang a hymn before he went to Gethsemane. My own guess is that it was one of the Psalms, and I wonder which one it was. Our Christian story is filled with music. I had the privilege for 8 years to hear the music of Peter Halleck at St. Mark's Cathedral in Seattle while I was canon pastor there from 1976 to 1984. They honored me at a service last year, and at the end of the service, a Japanese member of the congregation came up to me and showed me a picture from 1980. I had married he and his wife when she was a young exchange student from Japan and singing in the cathedral choir in 1980. She came down the aisle while her husband was talking to me, and she was still wearing her choir robe. After all those many years, she's a professional musician. She plays the harp, and she also teaches it. Yes, we've all been touched by the Spirit as we sing, listen, and play music. Peter Halleck was the musician at St. Mark's Cathedral from 1954 to the year 2000. I went to his funeral 7 years ago. He had started a Compline choir in the 60s with only a dozen people. And the 60s, as we know, was different. And before long, the entire cathedral, 300 to 500 people, were lying on the floor, sitting in the pew, lying on the pews, listening to a half an hour of Compline music. Wonderful. It wasn't that they came to church on Sunday morning, but they wanted to be a part of Compline. He had started a Compline choir that's still in existence today on Sunday nights. Written music for it, also written music for the cathedral choir. At his funerals, the two choirs sang at opposite points in the service. One up in the balcony, the other was moving throughout the entire congregation, singing. The Compline choir was important for all of us. And he was the one that made it happen. All the music that was sung by these choirs and the congregation had been written by Peter Halleck. All of the music was his. A gifted man from God who helped us to bring us closer to our Creator. As Christians, we are a people of hope, not fear. Music allows us to communicate hope. Can you imagine living in a world without hope? Can you imagine living in a world without music? The hills are alive with the sound of music, with words they have sung for thousands of years. Amen.